Chris Delion of hobbygamedev.com, and today I'll be giving a quick crash course in how to use Unity to quickly and easily make small, simple games, 3D games on your own. I'm assuming you have no background in using the tool. We're going to try to take you from there to having built a simple car driving game. I want to point out that even though the focus of today's tutorial is a car driving game, a lot of the same camera techniques, code hookup methods, and general navigation of the Unity tool will really map to any game in any genre, whether you're doing an action game, a platformer, a flight simulator, whatever it might be, even a puzzle game. So to begin with, let's show you the end result. That's probably a good place to start. And for that, I'm going to go to hobbygamedev.com/unity/simplecar. And you can see here we have a little car that drives around the environment, bumps off the hills, if it goes off the edge, respawns in the middle. And it's got a few extra features on here, so if I flip the car, I can press a button to reorient it. And also there's different cameras supported, so I have an example of a third-person camera. I have an example of a fixed camera location that follows the car, as well as a first-person view, just over the headlights, and an isometric camera, in case that's the style of game that you're interested in making. When you collide with a tree, it respawns the car back in the middle of the world. Okay, so let's see how this was put together. I've gone to unity3d.com, it's Unity's official website, and downloaded the tool. It is free to use, and you know, if you want to pay more, there are additional features you could get, but the free version really is covering all that we'll need for the types of games that we're making. So with it downloaded, you will open Unity, and we'll need to create a new project. So let's go to File, New Project, and we're going to replace the words New Project here with Simple Car HGD. I just put HGD there for Hobby Game Dev. You can name, of course, the project anything that you would like. We don't need any of these import packages, but if we want to do special things, we could include those. So go to Create Project. So we have a new empty scene, and we need to get our game started. I want to encourage you, if you're not already, to be using a 2-button mouse. If you have a 2-button mouse, plug it in. It is very, very useful on a Mac. Don't try to do it with a 1-button trackpad. Using Unity in general with a trackpad is just not going to go as well. You're not going to have a good time. So the first thing we need to do is let's build a car out of primitives. And for that, we're going to go to Game Object, Create Other, Cube. Let's cover a few basic camera navigation notes. If you hold down the middle mouse button, the mouse wheel, and drag, you can pan. If you hold down Alt and left click and drag, you can orbit. To zoom in and out, I use the mouse wheel. And perhaps most importantly, if you're ever disoriented in space and you have an object selected, you can press F and while the mouse is over the viewport, and it'll center the view on the object. And so if I'm way over here and I'm kind of lost, under my hierarchy, I can see here's the cube that I made. I can double click it and it will zoom. Or if it's already selected, mouse over the viewport, press F key, and it will zoom in on it and focus on it for me. So now to build this cube into a car, scale-wise, let's make this twice as long and half as tall. And you see I'm just typing these in here on the scale values on the side under Transform. And so that'll be kind of the body of the car. I duplicated it by clicking on it in the hierarchy, and then I use Command D. It's Control D for you Windows users. Or you can go to Edit Duplicate. So now I have a second one. And I drag that up. I'm going to make this into the top of the car. Let's make this not as long. One. Create other. I'm going to use a cylinder for the tires on the car. Now to rotate, we could use this gizmo to rotate it by hand, and there's even a way to rotate with snap. But instead, because I want it exactly 90 degrees, I'm just going to type in 90. Apparently I want to rotate around the z-axis. I'm just trying them out and seeing, okay, that got me the direction I want for wheels. Let's make it a bit smaller. See where this puts us. 1, 0.3, maybe a little bit bigger, 0.5s. Make it not as wide. There we go. And I'm going to position these little tires in the front of the car. I'm going to duplicate it. Duplicate. And if you click and drag on these arrow handles, you can move it along just that axis, which is a good way to make things that line up. So there. So I have a simple car made. It's my car shape. And we now need to make all these under a single object. This will make it easier to manipulate the car as a whole piece. And so the way that we go about creating kind of a folder concept in Unity is to create a empty game object. Game object, create empty, here in the menu. And this will be our parent for the car, so let's rename this to car all. And then we click and drag each of these pieces we just made into car all. And so now in addition to manipulating each of these parts, we can select and move around car all if we'd like to move it all as one piece. Let's make the ground. Going to make a new cube for that. Game object, create other, cube. Let's move it below the car because we want the ground below the car. For scale, give me anything you want. I'm going to make mine 20 by 1 by 20. Again, you see here I'm just typing in scale values. Let's see, it's down there. So when we hit play, we have kind of a weird view of the scene, right? We've got this silhouette, and we can't really, you and I know it's a car because you placed it there, but it could use some lighting. And so to solve that problem, we're going to add a light, game object, create other. Directional light is what we're going to use here, just because with a point light, with a spotlight, or an area light, we need a number of them to properly light a scene. Directional light works kind of like sunlight, where we can just have one, and that will light everything. Let's move it away from the car. Its position in space actually doesn't matter, just its orientation. And so you can see I use those arrows to drag it away from the car. Remember, if I mouse over the viewport and press F, it'll focus on it. Mouse wheel, zoom in to see what I'm doing. I'm going to use the rotation widget up here to affect how it's angled until I get kind of a good diagonal to show the lines on everything as best I can. And that'll do. And so now when I press play, you can see from the light, okay, we have a little better view of a car shape there. But our camera view still wasn't very good for looking at the car. So what we're going to do now is click on the car, mouse over viewport, press F, zoom back out. And kind of, since we know how to move the viewport easily, position the viewport like you would like your gameplay camera to be. And so I'm going to position kind of here in the corner looking down. Then we're going to click on main camera and go to game object, align with view. And what this does is it takes our viewport and sets up the main camera to match its position and orientation. So now when we press play, we see that our camera here has the same sort of view that we expected based on where we set up our viewport. You will notice, by the way, that whenever I press play, mine turns a hideous green. Yours probably isn't. Yours probably turns a shade of gray. This is actually a pretty important thing to know about. I'm going to show you how to set that up. And the reason why I make mine ugly green, I encourage some people to make it pink or blue or whatever you need, is that while you're in this mode, you can still modify values in the editor. And the risk is that while you're doing this, this is like for testing, if you want to move a character into the room or out of the room or move a wall, whatever, these changes get lost. And it's even more confusing if you press pause, because then you're back in your normal editor and you can still make changes, anything you want to do. But as soon as you press play to go back into editing, you lose all those changes that you made while you were in play mode. And so it's important to be able to tell very easily whether or not you're in play mode so you don't make changes and then lose them. So to do that, we're going to go to Unity Preferences. This will be in a slightly different location in Windows, but you can find it. And then in your preferences, play mode tint is what you want to change. By default, it's just a different shade of gray. I don't think it's a severe enough difference. Choose something ugly and eye-catching so it'll be very obvious to you when you're in play mode. Okay, so we have a directional light, we have our camera positioned, we have our play mode tint changed. Let's see, we've got our car under a parent. And so now let's make our car have some gravity. And to do that, we're going to select car all. We're going to go to component, physics, rigid body. And this will add rigid body here under the inspector for car all under our hierarchy. And you see use gravity is checked. And so when we press play, we'll see the car drop a little bit and snap down. It's pretty quick. Just as a test, let's take our ground cube, which by the way, instead of calling it cube, let's rename this in the inspector. Selected it in hierarchy, and now I'm going to rename cube to ground. Now let's rotate the ground. Give it an angle, just so we can see when we press play that gravity is in fact working for our car. Okay, it was a little better view. I turn it up steeper, press play. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so gravity clearly is working for our automobile. I'm going to set its rotation here back to 0 to flatten out the ground. Let's give the car some headlights. Like since we placed a directional light for the scene, we want to give the car spotlights. So first let's zoom in on our car, click on the car's body and press F. Going to go to game object, create other spotlight. So point light is like a round light that emits in all directions. A spotlight is directional, which is what we want for the car's headlight. And you can see initially it starts pointing down, and I'm using the rotate gizmo. This one right here. W, E, and R switch between these, by the way, which is very handy to know. W to move, E to rotate, R to scale. And again, I'm rotating on the circle to get better control over the exact angle. And I can see here that roughly what I want is this thing close to 0, and these other numbers work out so the headlight points ahead. And I'm going to move it using the translation gizmo W. This one right here. Kind of about to the position of where a headlight should be. I'm going to move the spotlight inside car all so that it will move when the car does. I'm going to duplicate it and move on to the opposite side of the car. And now when I press play, headlights here in front of the car. And maybe make that more apparent if I'll select both headlights, use the rotation gizmo and point them down a little bit more. And now it'll be much more apparent when I press play. Boom, there's the car's headlights. Now currently the ground is the same shade as everything else, which is kind of making it difficult to see the car. Let's create a new material. And so for that we're going to go to Assets, Create Material. It wants us to name it. We'll name it Grass. And if you ever need to rename something, you rename it the same way you do in your operating system.